Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? Let's try to tackle the Eagles a little bit. This is obviously not something we can really make total heads or tails of in one night, but we're 3 years and a couple of weeks removed from the Eagles Super Bowl championship, and the organization now, you no longer have the head coach, you no longer have the offensive coordinator, you no longer have either quarterback that got you through that season. Some of the receivers from that team are now gone. It looks like Jason Kelce is on his way out, Zach Ertz on his way out, and I understand. I mean, over time and contracts, especially with championship teams. I mean, my Capitals are in the same boat. 3 years removed from a Stanley Cup, there's a lot of faces that are no longer with the team, but not only from a on the field standpoint, but it seems like the front office with the Eagles is in disarray. You had reports of Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson, not talking for weeks, possibly months. The team hasn't drafted well. They haven't managed personnel well. They have countless injuries, even back to that Super Bowl season with injuries. There just seems to be just a huge issue organizationally with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Justin, we'll throw it to you first on this one. Where do they even begin to start fixing this thing? I mean, I know a lot of Eagles fans very unhappy with Howie Roseman, but with the exception of getting a new GM, I mean, where do they even start to fix this thing?
Yeah, I mean, the new GM has obviously been the hot topic, and that's what the Eagles fans want. I mean, for me, the crazy part is not so much that you trade Wentz and not so much that you got what you got from him, but it's the point to which you got to him. It's that point of you allowed certain things from an organizational standpoint to get to this level. I mean, even just something from the Hurts draft to getting to the point where in week 17, you're actually pulling Hurts in the fourth quarter of a game and then making Hurts mad because you pulled him. So, there's just a list of organizational moves that have allowed them to get to this point that shouldn't be. And I think, you go, where do you go from here? Especially when you've let go of your quarterback, you've let go of the coach, and you're thinking, okay, well, if we let go of the coach, it's got to be the quarterback that we're keeping. And then you let go of both, and you're like, okay, well, how does the GM still keep his job? Especially because, as you said, it's not just one bad year. It's not just a couple of things. It's bad drafts that have led them to this point. And I've heard even the jokes of, let's say that the Colts even give them the first pick because they make the playoffs and Wentz plays 70% of the downs. Are the Eagles going to screw up that first round pick as well?
Right.
And so that's the biggest question. So where do you go from here? It's got to start at the top. And I think even if it's not Roseman himself, there's got to be better scouting, and that's got to be the start of it. One of the things that we've talked about before in the past with Andy Reid and how he's one of the greats, not just obviously with the Chiefs, but even in his days with the Eagles, he really said it with the front five, the front defensive line. And that was where they made their success. And that's where the Chiefs have made their success. Obviously they've got Mahomes, but it's their offensive line that was what, really made things easier for them. And then when their offensive line wasn't there in the Super Bowl, you saw what happened. But that's been that key of success for them. And that's where Andy Reid was. So conversely with the Eagles, if they need to do anything in terms of scouting, it's got to be better in the front five. It's got to be better on the defensive line to at least give those guys a chance. And if you're not going to do something in terms of changing the GM, your scouting department's got to get better.
Definitely. Sean, where's the first place? Because obviously we could do probably a series of episodes on the Eagles organizationally, but where's the place besides scouting that you say probably needs to start for this team and this organization.
Well, I mean, I've said it for a while that, and you alluded to the injuries. I don't know where the fix is for that. I don't know if, it's a matter of training staffs. I know the Eagles have made changes even since the Super Bowl. They've not had the same training staff the entire time. And it's kind of one of those scenarios where the trouble is, no matter how well you draft offensive linemen, no matter how well you draft quarterbacks, even if you're taking some stabs at wide receivers that you have no business taking, when you're talking about that scenario, you're starting guys off your practice squad at any position on multiple weeks in a year. And you're starting guys that you weren't even on your team when the season started. Do I think Doug Peterson's partly to blame for the scenario that happened this year? Yes. Do I think, Howie Roseman and all these guys are? Sure. But even once you've built your roster, there's only so much you can do if none of them are able to play 16 games or, even 12 or 13 games. You got guys missing huge chunks of the year. And, Justin alluded to the offensive line. When you talk about Andy Reid and you talk about the success that he had in Philadelphia and kind of the ability to make the city finally relevant again, across that offensive line, you had two tackles in Runyon and Trey Thomas that didn't miss. Neither of them missed a start, and I think it was something like 9.5 years or 11. It was a nonsense stat of literally Donovan McNabb knew at the very least, one, that he had no receivers to throw to, and two, that at least he was going to have time to find one of the rinky-dink wide receivers he did have. So he knew where those pillars were, and he knew to stay between them. And, for the most part, that kept Donovan McNabb alive, and that kept Andy Reid, doing what he was doing. And, you look at his ability to draft well, like you said, Justin, and, the fact that so many people pass on a guy like Pat Mahomes. You look at teams that are looking for quarterbacks now, like the Chicago Bears and teams like that passed on. I mean, they passed on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes for Mitch Trubisky. And now they missed out on their solution, Carson Wentz. So, that's a real shame. But you look at this and there was talk that the Chiefs had to trade up to get Pat Mahomes. And then, the guy that was just about to sneak in there and take him was going to be the Saints. The Saints apparently had a lot of hopes of taking him despite having Drew Brees. And people, maybe it would have been a Jalen Hurts thing. What are you doing drafting this person in the first,
Right. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app. That's arenaeats.app for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?
But it's because you have guys that have consistently found offensive talent in places no one else had. You have Sean Payton that had success with guys like Marcus Colston, and you had, even a guy like Drew Brees, who was passed up by Nick Saban in Miami, and people weren't sure where he fell, and how was his shoulder going to hold up, and was he tall enough? Peyton seemed to think so, and that's worked out pretty well. And it's Andy Reid has consistently found success with products that other people had passed on, and you're looking at Peterson, who had kind of inherited a team, put it together, and I mean, realistically, I have a feeling that this Super Bowl, ironically, that my T-shirt's talking about, is a lot to do with the coaching staff that he assembled. And the trouble is, when you have success with the coaching staff, you no longer have that coaching staff,
right?
And you have to kind of piece it together on your own. And I'm not sure Peterson was quite where he needed to be as a coach and as a leader to kind of reassemble those pieces that quickly. And things kind of fell apart pretty fast, but yeah, I like. I think you got to do something about training and just, this year have been somewhat COVID related, maybe, but I mean, you're looking at the last 3-4 years of just key pieces going missing multiple times, and you're just never going to succeed. I mean, maybe in the NFC East right now because nobody else is any good.
Right.
Like that's like your only hope. Like when you're clinging to that hope every year, like that's not good enough. You have to be able to sell your fan base and sell your city and everything on something better than, well, we're in the NFC East. So I hope this is the start of it. And let's not, before I let go of Philadelphia here for a second. Let's be very aware that there is still a very legitimate chance the Eagles use that 6th pick / trade up from that 6th pick and are still, like, people just seem to think, oh, good, they chose Hurts. I think the only thing that this trade tells us is that they didn't choose Wentz.
Sure.
I don't think
there.
Was Hurts fun to watch? Did he give an emotional lift? Yes. Do I think he's definitely the quarterback of the future in Philadelphia? No. I think there's still a lot of question marks. There's a lot of reasons, why teams didn't look at him higher than he got drafted. There's a lot of other scenarios. And I think in what they call a quarterback-heavy draft, when you hold the 6th overall pick, you need to kind of look at, 1, are we drafting a quarterback? Or 2, I'd look at if we are not taking a quarterback, is there someone else that needs one that's willing to give us a lot of value for this in this position and maybe step back? I'd have no problem with them finding the best other piece that they need either. 6 is there's going to be a lot of talent there. I don't want to see them drop too far and you're rebuilding, but let's not be just kind of content on like, well, Jalen Hurts is our guy. Let's go buy that number 2 jersey. You could be hanging up your number 2 jersey the same way I'm hanging up my number 11 in a couple of years.
We were talking about that, but we bought you that the one year for Christmas, and
well, the last 2 active Eagles jerseys I had were the Carson Wentz that you had gotten for me, and ironically, an old Deshaun Jackson that had recycled itself thanks to Deshaun Jackson's career. And within a week of each other, they're both gone. So we're down to 0 active ones, which is fine. I can go back to my Ricky Waters and my.
I haven't had
LaShawn McCoy.
I haven't had an active Cowboys jersey since Roy Williams, the safety.
Unfortunately, the Cowboys are struggling to find an active Cowboys.
Well, that's true as well.
Jersey to put on anyway.
As well. But like I had a couple Des Bryant ones that like I thought about just buying a Lamb nameplate for and just doing some sewing work and getting that on there. But what
was like the weird during the Super Bowl somebody tweeted a Chiefs fan that had like a Priest Holmes jersey. And like without changing the number, even just like pasted the M.A. It was like Mahomes.
Mahomes.
Like it was just like yeah, close enough. Good job, guys.
Yeah, good work.
Well played.
Give an A for
not even close to the right number. Like not even anywhere near.
And I mean, I think one of the things that's important to remember about, because one of the things I've seen, and I'm not questioning that there's potentially a GM issue there, but like. When you go, well, we could have had so-and-so, they were there on the board, and you took this like those things are always easier in hindsight. I mean, and like Cowboys fans always go back to the fact that they passed on Randy Moss. Like the Cowboys passed on Randy Moss. Yeah, but we also in that spot drafted Greg Ellis, who was a starting defensive lineman for the Cowboys for like 14 seasons. So, like, yeah, we didn't get Randy Moss, but we had one.
People questioned the Brandon Graham draft for the Eagles for years. People talk about the Metcalf, and like there are a lot of misses that, like in hindsight, are good. But Brandon Graham was drafted with like some safety pieces and things we wanted on the board. I think that was the Earl Thomas year, where they drafted Brandon Graham while Earl Thomas was still on the board. And with Brian Dawkins missing, would Earl Thomas have been a great piece to add? Yes. Would Earl Thomas have been as successful in our defensive scheme as the Seahawks? Maybe. Probably. He's real good. But, as you watched Brandon Graham develop and kind of become, and the strength of the Eagles winning that Super Bowl was on the ability to rotate defensive linemen because we had so many people that were as good as Brandon Graham. And so you have that kind of pass rush build itself. And even without any big names at the safety position, you brought in a Malcolm Jenkins. You were able to win a Super Bowl anyway. And I think that kind of ended up erasing itself, and people talk less about it now. But look, there's certain positions like safety where you're going to take some chances on a guy, and it's very hard to do in the first round because when you look at the 32, and people always talk about how few quarterbacks there are that are at a top level caliber. Safety is another one of those positions where name me 10 safeties in the NFL whose jobs are completely safe. Like who are so above the level of talent, like that they are irreplaceable.
I would challenge most people to name 10 safeties in the NFL.
That's a good point. Name 10 safeties in the
NFL.
NFL.
Name 10 of them.
He'll be like, it's Tyrann Mathieu and
Ronnie Lott.
Ronnie Lott, yeah, he's pretty good. Steve Atwater's pretty great. I don't know if I could name 10 without looking at a sheet of paper. But the point is, it's such a hard position to fill, and especially with the rules that have been kind of put in place, nobody wants to play safety.
Right.
So, did the Eagles miss there? Maybe. But like you said, when you look back at it, there's these positions and these situations where, probably could have gone that other way. But, that's, you pay people to make those decisions, and then when they don't, they're fired. That's how it works, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?